Did you know that Kansas City has an above average crime rate and homicide rate? I didn't know this when I first read that fact, and I know many of you probably didn't know that either. So that's why I picked to do this topic for my research project because it struck me as very surprising that our city, which is not really known for crime, has such a high crime rate. It's above average in Kansas City. And this is a quote from Houseworth from the website Ozarks First. The homicide rate in Chicago is the one that gets all the attention because just the numbers are so great. Kansas City actually has a higher rate, not in pure numbers, but in per capita basis. We have a higher murder rate than Chicago. And that was interesting to me because, yeah, like he said, Chicago, cities like that kind of get the rap for being high in crime. Kansas City never usually does. So when I looked at this, I researched and I narrowed it down to possible causes. And an interesting cause that caught my eye, which is a very possible cause, is that there is an increasing amount of vacant houses and abandoned buildings, especially in the inner city, where crime is more likely to occur. Um, so why is this a problem? Well, it's an ethical concern and it's a community concern. People are affected everywhere by this. Obviously, it's an issue in the affected community, and it should be an issue in the entire city. And it hurts communities because people are affected by these crimes. And when talking about crimes like these, it's more significant crimes like homicides, robberies. Not an unpaid ticket, not that kind of crime we're talking about here. So the above average crime rates in Kansas City, they can be linked to abandoned buildings in the inner city, specifically called the urban core, which we'll talk about later. And these crime rates are concerns for the community and the city, and the community must take action against these. So, like I said, vacant buildings and houses are a possible link to crime in all cities. And this is a quote from Campbell, which is a national site, not just related to Kansas City. He says, abandoned houses invite nefarious activities. Lots overgrown with weeds can conceal bodies and other things. Broken streetlights provide a cloak of darkness. And that quote stuck out to me because it is true. Abandoned buildings they're hidden and, like you said, a cloak of darkness. So they really are hidden, and they provide easy access for crime. So, like I mentioned, the urban core in Kansas City is a 34 square mile defined area which borders 85th Street, Troost Avenue, St. John Avenue, and Topping Avenue. And it's more in the inner city. And this has been a concentrated area of crime per research by local law enforcement, local news stations. So, in this quote from Alcock, he's from KCTV5. He says studies show that from 2015 to 2018, about 67% of all homicides took place in the urban core. And homicide is a big factor in our crime rates, so obviously, yeah, that's pretty serious. And I think, um, you know, when looking at vacant buildings and vacant houses, that's something that can definitely be linked to the high crime in Kansas City. So, like I said, these vacant buildings and houses, they are hidden. Um, Not a lot of attention gets paid to them. Um, Obviously because they're abandoned. They're empty. Very easy access. Usually, they're busted open windows, open doors, very easy ways for people to get in. And this is a quote from another national site about a database about vacant houses. He states vacant houses come with a high price tag. They can become breeding grounds for crime and dumping grounds for trash. Vacant homes often become havens for squatters, vandals, thieves, vagrant partiers, and worse. They also become prime targets for arson. Vacant homes are frequently transformed into drug houses. And that's kind of what I've been echoing, or that echoes what I've been saying um, earlier in my research, is that the vacant houses definitely pose as a threat because they provide such easy access and they're very accessible for people. Um, and what does this mean? Well, there are solutions. Obviously, you sell the abandoned building, the abandoned home, or the government takes control of it and boards it off, shuts it down, maybe destroys it depending on the circumstances. Um, and this would help. Not totally. Obviously, you can never take away crime from any city, but this may help because we've already linked vacant housing to crime. So this could help something um, in terms of alleviating our crime. Um, and so this is from John Pepitone of Fox 4. A massive reorganization of the police department is targeting violent crime in a small area of the city. Police say violent crime is concentrated in neighborhoods that make up only about 1/10 of Kansas City. They have identified 34 square miles, the urban core, where most of the killing, shootings, and drug dealing has been happening. Um, so with that, we can segue into why are crime rates such big deals for cities? Well, obviously it's because of the simple fact that it's crime that affects everybody, um, and it is an ethical concern for a city and a community. Many are affected. The community members within the community or a city or the neighborhood, if you're looking more localized, they are affected, and the rest of the city, um, being the loving Midwestern city that Kansas City is, maybe should come together to aid the issue and try and make life better for anyone, criminals, um, victims, obviously. Um, just try and make life better. And possible, links to this urban core area in the area of the city include mental health, poverty, homelessness. They're all factors in these crime rates, as they are in most cities, because these circumstances tend to not necessarily encourage crime, but that's sort of what people turn to if they need to make ends meet in any way. Um, Community and law enforcement must act together on this, and we can talk about community helping citizens helping the community by also helping law enforcement, because obviously they cannot do it alone. This is a quote from the article "Understanding Community Policing," and this is from the Department of Justice. Community policing is, in essence, a collaboration between the police and the community that identifies and solves community problems. With the police no longer the sole guardians of law and order, all members of the community become active allies in the effort to enhance the safety and quality of the neighborhoods. So this is obviously helpful for law enforcement if the community were to possibly help in any way, because, like I said, the increasing crime is bad for the city, and not many people know about this. So if there's a way to spread awareness, have more people, know that Kansas City is surprisingly such a high crime area, then maybe that would inspire people to take action. Um, so why is Kansas City so violent? Well, obviously we touched on the mental health issues, the poverty in areas, the homelessness, um, and this is from an article by Lowe, Peggy, and Tudhope. Um, so they say, or this is from the Kansas City Health Department. They treat the high homicide rate as a public health epidemic, triggered in people after experiencing a childhood trauma, abuse, neglect, household dysfunction. The individual trauma ripples out into a community that's often racially segregated from the rest of the city. And we can link this back to the previously mentioned urban core. Um, so with that being said, obviously crime rates are above average in Kansas City. Um, and we link this to vacant housing, specifically in the area I was looking at in my research, which was the urban core and the inner city, which is, I'm not trying to link a race to the crime rates, but it's a predominantly African American community, not necessarily community, more of an area, a local area. So that obviously should encourage us to maybe what am I trying to say? Provide a helping hand to that community and come together as a city and help our fellow Kansas City natives that need help. And because this affects the community and it's an ethical concern. And like I said, the community must come together and help fix the issue because law enforcement cannot fight the crime alone. So, and if we link homelessness and poverty to crime, then perhaps donating to organizations or things like that may just be the aid that the city needs to fight the high crime because it's not going away, and we must come together as a city to fight it and possibly prevent these crime rates.